now, we're jumping into the draft. We can see pretty standard bans from the side of Vitality. The Soraka, the Syndra, the Pantheon going to be taken off the board as well. For Vitality, they're taking away the Yuumi, something that we've been seeing rise in priority. The Xayah is a little surprising, but when we think about how B-Boy played on it yesterday with Denik on that Rakan, that was a large part of what allowed them to get that big win over G2. Of course, Razork, very impressive performance on the Echo, but it was large in part thanks to the duo of B-Boy and Denik. So respecting that pick for the bot lane of Misfits.
It felt like Razork set that lane up for success by burning Caps' flash early on, and then Denik and B-Boy really capitalized on the fact they could continue to catch out their enemy man. There's the Aphelios locked in for B-Boy. We'll see where Misfits go with their second pick of this first rotation. It's going to be Aatrox, a safe, flexible pick for them.
Looks like the Misfits are holding on to their jungler. Commonly in Europe, what we would see is a Lee Sin priority here, grabbing that very powerful jungler. We heard on the pop quiz that pretty much most players said you should nerf Lee Sin because of how strong they believe he is right now. But Misfits want to keep that option open for, of course, the Echo or maybe other AP junglers that are available in the current meta. And speaking of AP junglers, Skeen's going to go for the Elise. Very powerful early game jungler that can influence the top lane very effectively. And it's going to be paired up with the Ezreal, who we've been seeing rise in priority quite a lot. Misfortune has fallen down, Senna obviously also fallen down, but with the lethal tempo and with the small changes to a lot of his base growth stats, we are seeing him become more popular in the meta. Yeah,
just a little bit of extra mana early on for that Ezreal on 10.3. We'll see how that affects Comp, who's playing it for the second time this split. Obviously 0-1 on it so far. Misfits will look towards their jungler as their final pick on this first rotation. It's going to be Sejuani for Razork.
Interesting. So Misfits going for much more of a scaling style of comp this time around. It is possible for them to get a bit of control in the bot side of the map, because in the 1v1 against Aatrox and Set, we know and we've seen that Set often gets that early priority. So Misfits, I'd like to see them hold on to their support pick, try and use it as a counter so you can guarantee that matchup or a pushing lane in the bot side of the map. Alternatively, they could try and get the counter for Featherven, but I feel like he has a lot of blind pickable champions that he'll feel very comfortable going for. And you can also see that he's actually denying a lot of pretty safe blind picks, things like the Syndra and the Zoe. So perhaps with the direction of their bans, they're actually thinking more about giving the counter over to Featherven rather than giving it to Denik. We'll have to see what direction they go toward.
There's still a lot of options here for Misfits. I do want to call back to that Sejuani pick, because yesterday Razork tweeted after their game that the team had wanted him to pick Sejuani, and he, at the final moment, said, nah, just lock me in Echo. So obviously Sejuani is something they're comfortable with and have practiced, and putting it alongside a melee top laner can give you that ability to get stuns off even quicker. Rakan will be the man for Misfits. Get rid of a little bit of flexibility in that support pool. We'll see where Vitality go next.
I think Rakan offers a lot of engage, which is something that Vitality is missing right now. You've got to remember that Ezreal in the 2v2 bot lane is also pretty safe. He's a difficult champion to dive, which gives a lot of freedom for the Rakan to roam. So you can create these very powerful jungle support setups where you can bring the Rakan early Moby boots, look to influence the rest of the map while leaving the Ezreal isolated in the bot side.
Especially with an Elise, that ability to tower dive, get in and out very quickly is one of Rakan's key facets. The Braum will be banned by Vitality. I believe that was Steelback's most played in 2019. Of course, banning away from himself. We'll see where he goes with his next rotation. Thresh is a combination we see quite commonly.
Yeah, and I think that Thresh blind right now is a very strong pick as well. I'm curious as to whether or not Vitality will go for something like a Morgana to give them a little bit more pressure and poke in the laning phase. But of course, again, they're lacking that engage. Something like a Leona could be an option, or a Nautilus. But again, Thresh does quite well into both of them. It depends on what direction they want to think about. Ooh, I'm not a fan of that. Please don't do that. You
say that every time Tom Kench's pick, Benny. It's going to be the Cassio for now. Steelback will have a little bit longer to think about his support.
Cassio blind. We know that this is a comfort pick for Forsaken. This is something that he brought out a lot in week 1, and he had a very solid performance on it. Offers that additional AP damage. Really good gank setup in the mid lane as well, because you throw the miasma down, the enemy doesn't have time to flash, which means that the Elise can flash over, land the cocoon, then you find yourself with a very quick kill. I think it offers a pretty powerful mid-jungle duo. And they're going to go for the Pyke. Okay, so Pyke can generate a lot of pick power, goes towards that roaming style, similar to what we were talking about for the Rakan. We expect to see Steelback moving around the map probably quite a lot in the early game, going for those early Moby boots, working with Skeens to look for those early kills, and we'll see if Steelback can influence the rest of the map and perhaps help Vitality convert those early game skirmishes and leads that they are finding into bigger advantages that they can look to win the game with.
Yesterday, they were about 1,300 gold ahead of Fnatic early on in the game. It was only 6 minutes in, and then they started to lose out. But Steelback, known for his roaming, known for his teaming up with his jungler, this is the composition in which you'd want to do it. Final pick was LeBlanc for Febby, as expected. And I was wondering if that Ezreal would stick in the mid lane. It's switched back to AD carry, unsurprising.
So the LeBlanc is a little surprising to me, given that they knew the Cassio was going to be coming out. Well, they steal the Cassio, which means they had more room to counterpick.
Yep.
I think by picking the LeBlanc, it's much more of a skill matchup. Largely, well, we'll talk a lot more about it in game, but I think that the mid lane 1v1 is not as reliable for Misfits as it potentially could have been, which means that while, in theory, Misfits should have pretty powerful push in the bot side of the map, they're going to be falling behind in the top. They may fall behind in the mid, but again, it depends on how the early level trades and who gets the wave first and how that setup actually happens. I'm really interested in how this early laning phase goes, because I think it's going to influence a lot of what Skeens is able to do on the map, and that's going to be the most important part. By playing this Elise, you're not going to have the same late game scaling value that a Sejuani has, which means you're going to have to rely on him to help your laners get those early kills, try and facilitate a successful early game so you can transition that into a powerful mid game where you have things like the Trinity Force, Power Spike on both the Set and the Ezreal, which is where you'll look to be pretty strong for Vitality.
You want to try and align with those power points, get those first items in, and see if you can snowball the game away from Misfits. Misfits, of course, haven't talked about them much, but they're on a 5-game winning spree. First team to take down G2 yesterday. The last time they won 5 games in a row was 2018, Vedius. 538 days, 81 days ago was the last time they won a winning spree this good. We'll see if Misfits can continue it, making it 6 in a row today against Vitality.
We're going to be jumping into game now, and yeah, we'll see if the change of Steelback can be enough. We'll see what Misfits can do. Can they keep the winning streak going? Taking down G2 is definitely a momentous occasion. They're going to ruin the 18-0 split. And again, a lot of it came off the back of a very successful bot lane, along with Razork performing extremely well. So I'm excited to see if they can maintain that level of performance coming into today, as we are now jumping onto Summoner's Rift.
A few pings coming out early on, but it looks like both teams will just spread out, make sure nothing untoward, nothing suspect is happening. Skeens chucks out the volatile Spiderling. Razork will know that Elise is on this top side. But Betty, there's a lot of different matchups to talk about here. You said you wanted to approach the Cassio LeBlanc one. Is that where you want to start?
I want to look at it early when the minion waves hit each other, because something I've been talking a lot with my colleagues about is an easy way to determine which mid laner is able to get early push depends on how quickly you can kill the melee minions, right? Because with the melee minions out of the way, it gives you easier access to harass your opponent, but also they're the kind of beefy front line that once they're gone, you kind of then have the wave in your control. So when you look at mid lane champions, you have to think about, okay, when comparing the two, who can clear those melee minions first? And you're looking at Cassio and like, okay, she's probably going to start with the Q at level 1. Right now, she hasn't started with anything yet. Going to wait for the minions to arrive, of course. But then you'll use that Q to throw down on the melee minions, and of course you're hitting all 3 of them.
Yeah.
And the cooldown is relatively short, so if you invest in it, you can get that early push, but that depends if you want to invest that much early mana. Seiken has chosen to go for the E, which is also a very solid level 1 choice. It helps with that last hitting, it helps with the wave clear, and if Fervent over-aggresses, you can also get a bit of damage. Not a huge amount of damage, because a lot of it obviously comes from the combo of applying poison and E, which means that in this situation, Fervent is in a great position to get that early push, because his W can hit the vast majority of minions. You can see how it's actually relatively even right now, so neither laner has a huge advantage, and we're likely going to be waiting to see who gets that early level 2, early level 3, which is why the minion wave is so important, because those early levels would dictate who gets a lot of power in the early laning phase.
At the moment, Furby is outmatching his opponent. Ignite's going to come down here. Steelback forces the flash away from Denik. Steelback's hit a couple of bone skewers in a row. Denik perhaps not respecting the damage from Pyke.
I think that was a situation where Bvoy was focused on pushing the wave, Denik was focused on zoning Steelmack and Comp away, which means that Denik was effectively in a 2 versus 1, while Comp was constantly hitting Denik, Bvoy was hitting the wave. So now they have the push in this 2 versus 2, and that means that Vitality is going to lose some farm to the minions, but of course it did cost Denik his flash as well.
Bvoy does have heal, while Comp has teleport in that bottom lane, so there is another combat summoner for Misfits.
Have a quick look at the top lane. You can see Skeens already level 3, something that you commonly see on the Elise, looking for these early dives. Cabo has this wave stacking up, but using that W very early, 18-second cooldown at level 1, I don't know if they can make this dive happen.
Oh, here we go. Skeens catching the wave, walking in now. Razork's just around the corner. The Inferno Chains is going to land on Skeens, and here comes the chase. Skeens already dead. Teleport coming in as well. Cabochard's having to run for the hills, but already Dan and Razork are chasing him down. The flash from Razork gets on the other side, but the Facebreaker will pull them back. Lands the stun. The chains still connect, and Dan jumps in. Another Haymaker comes out. Febby almost fallen. Has to flash away. Cabo can't win in the 1v3, and Misfits find 2 quick kills in the top lane.
At the start of that fight, both of Cabochard's E and W were on a 10-second cooldown. Skeens may have been 1v1 setting up that dive. He was alone. There was nothing to help facilitate any kind of play, and Dan recognizing this was like, okay, let's just turn our attention onto the squishy spider. I know that Razork is in the vicinity, and they get a successful counter gank. And again, Cabochard just used all of his wave clear on the minion wave, so when they set up for this tower dive, there's nothing to follow up. There's no additional damage, which means that Skeens is just kind of left to the wayside as we see another fight in bot lane.
Skeens is going to land the cocoon. You have to feel this is Dunzo for Denek. He gets taken out. Steelback with his first kill back on the LEC stage.
So good response from Skeens. It doesn't matter that he died top, he immediately goes back to bot. He didn't lose his flash, still has that available. And of course, Denek, after the earlier play, didn't have that available. So Vitality not slowing down with their aggression, of course, still lost a lot though.
Yeah.
Dan picking himself up 2 kills. He now has the double buff, a matchup where Cabochard would normally have the push. He's now going to be forced to play a lot more defensively, and Dan still has a lot of money that he can look to spend. So we're going to have a look at how this one plays out. Pretty simple, straightforward gank. Bvoy and Denek are pushing far up into the lane. They don't have any control over the bot side. Their jungle is in the top lane. Denek has no flash, and Steelback, with a great setup, enables Vitality to find a quick kill.
Yeah, Steelback still landing that bone skewer, not even burning his flash. He's shown that he is an experienced support. You know, he's been playing in the LFL for the last year, and I think some people wondered as to whether he would be able to match the caliber of LEC support. So far, it's looking pretty good.
Well, we're 5 minutes in, Medic.
Yeah, I said so far. I added
So
the proviso
yeah.
that if he now starts inting, as Vitality supports have been tended to do over the last few weeks. Let's see, he's going in mid lane though, this roaming that we have talked about already coming to the forefront. Gets a couple of wards off, and because of the safety of Ezreal, it's very easy for him to do this. You can just continually roam around, use that Ghost Water dive to get back to the lane.
They also have pretty good vision around the river, which means that they can be aware of where Razork is. The only thing you have to be careful of as an Ezreal is the risk of getting dived. He's just used his teleport, which means that if he does get dived now, then he's going to be in a pretty sticky situation. But of course, he knows he's safe. He knows he's in a healthy spot. And so he can just sit back and farm. No Moby boots being picked up yet for Steelback. Actually invests in the boots and the longsword, so he wants to have a little bit of AD working towards what will likely be an early Umbral Glaive. I think is a great item on Pyke. Helps you with a lot of your vision control. Skeens looking for another dive in the top lane, but Dan using that as an opportunity to base. Doesn't invest the teleport. You can see the pings coming down on the mini-map. Misfits very aware of what Skeens is up to. Even though they don't have a huge amount of vision, they still recognize, along with Saken, trying to move up towards the top side of the map. So Cabochard, even though they were not able to make that dive happen successfully, you can actually see that he's keeping the gold gap relatively close. Of course, Dan down half CS. He still sits with a 200 gold lead right now. Well, 100 more or less. And of course, a lot of that comes from the double kill that he picked up early on. Still has the teleport, can still look to make a play bot. The biggest problem that Dan has is the experience difference that exists between him and Cabochard, which is likely why he's going to get bullied around a lot still in this early game.
Cabo's gone back and got himself an Executioner's Calling. It's what we tend to see first against Aatrox's. Comp on his first back went for the Sheen, knowing that Bvoy would want to get himself a BF sword. You have to match some of that combat power in the lane. Of course, it delays the stacking up of the tier, but it makes it a lot easier for Comp just to farm from range if he needs to.
Yeah, many AD carries have told me that when you get Sheen on Ezreal, you're actually one of the strongest AD carries in the laning phase, just because of how much additional power you get. The Q cost is pretty low. You can keep throwing it out. It's a great wave clear tool. It's a great harassment tool. And if you're like aiming for minions, maybe you hit the enemy champion, it just takes that health bar, slowly chips it away, and there's very little that the enemy can do to trade back. So yeah, definitely a strong early pickup, and I think it assists a lot with the 2v2 overall, especially given that Bvoy doesn't have any summoner spells either.
Denek's flash is back from the earlier play, but 6 is on its way for Steelback. Comp has already hit it. We'll see if Vitality want to do something to force the tempo of this game, because they have been playing pretty aggressive early on in their recent matches.
Yeah, they certainly have. We saw against Fnatic yesterday, they were going toe-to-toe. Fnatic, of course, when the mid-game started to strike around that 15-minute mark is where we got to see a lot more aggression. And speaking of aggression, you can see Febiven doing just that in the mid lane. And I talked about how this is very much a skill matchup. You can just see from the itemization that Featherman has now had an opportunity to go back to base, pick up that lost chapter, and that gives you a lot more power during the laning phase. Of course, Seiken only sitting on 2 mana crystals, on top of the fact that his jungler just reset, forced him to play a little bit more defensively. Now that he's got the tier, it's not necessarily a bigger spike, but it allows you to be more aggressive because you just have more mana in the pool. So now that he's picked that one up, I expect him to trade a little bit more against Featherman, who has now just spotted out Steelback. The Aftershock does get procced, which is something they have to take into consideration if they're looking for a dive right now.
Still only level 5 on Steelback and on Skeens. Dan's gonna pop the World Ender. Cocoon hits a minion. Dan able to flash away. Haymaker still connects. And Cabo pulled back with the Infernal Chains. Will pay for the dive with his life.
Dan doing what he can in the 1 versus 3 rather. Able to trade a 1-for-1. You can see sitting at 3 kills right now. Does give a shutdown over, but given so many resources being invested into the top side of the map, you have to give credit to Dan doing what he possibly can. Very close to completing that Black Cleaver and utilizing the Aatrox skill set very, very well. When we get the replay, we can see exactly what he does, but a Featherman just going to soak up that farm in the top lane as well.
Vitality have about a 600 gold lead right now, and the game goes Sepia. And Misfits had secured the Infernal Dragon a couple of moments ago. We hadn't mentioned it yet, so I just wanted to put it back on everyone's radar. And it was interesting to see that trade because Misfits actually went straight for the Infernal Dragon at 8 minutes, and we saw Steelback going up towards the Rift Herald at 8 minutes. So it's usually what you see is teams rotating their AD carries across towards the Rift Herald, and maybe Vitality were anticipating Misfits doing that, and Misfits decided instead they would just go straight towards the Dragon.
I mean, maybe, but I also think that...
hypothesizing that.
I mean, yeah, no. That's why I said, yeah, maybe. That could be one reason. Another possibility could be that Vitality do have a tendency to play towards Capuchard. And Skeens ganks for him a lot. And now they've got Steelback, also a player that loves to roam around the map. And he's also investing resources top. And we can see... First things first is the ultimate gets used onto Dan. Really good flash there from Cabochard with the W. Of course, the problem with doing that is you lose the shield to help secure that kill, and then because of a really good Umbral Change that was thrown out by Dan, you get dragged back underneath the tower. So it was really well played by Dan. I think he did everything that he possibly could. The best thing about it was the fact that Steelback wasn't level 6 yet, so he didn't have his ultimate available. Yeah. Which would have made the dive a lot easier for Vitality overall. But yeah, it's one of those situations where you're like, 1-for-1, best you could have done. You know, your team is like saying, GG, well played, Aatrox.
Yeah, good job.
Good job. But then Dan's like, bot lane, I'm getting camped. Why haven't you taken tower yet? Of course, Dan's not thinking that right now, but I'm sure many top laners would be thinking that in your solo queue game. And kind of when we look at the state of the map, it's a situation where I think B-Void, because he didn't have his summoner spells, he couldn't be in a position to play aggressively. But I also think that Denick is playing second fiddle to Steelback right now. He has also now completed his Boots of Mobility, but you'll notice that he's moving a little bit behind. And part of the issue that Misfits do have with their comp is the fact that Sejuani and Thresh doesn't quite have the same kill threat as an Elise and a Pyke does at this point in the game, especially once Steelback gets level 6. That is a scary duo that you don't want to run into. So the best thing for Misfits to do is to actually just actively avoid them and move to the opposite side of the map, which kind of ties back into what you were saying, where Misfits immediately, rather than trying to counter dive, they just went towards the Drake because they recognized this is probably the best play that we could do. And Dan, he's not even that far behind. Right now, he's 3,300 gold, Cabochard 3,360 gold.
I mean, that 60 gold is very important.
I mean, sure.
It's 3/4 of a control ward, Vedius. We do just have a keyboard issue with Fairhaven. League officials are investigating, so I'm sure they'll get that sorted as soon as they can. It's obviously frustrating to have a pause this early on in the game, but it does give us more time to talk about how these teams are going to play as the game develops, Vedius. Right now, Misfits avoiding Vitality, or at least avoiding Steelback and Skeens as much as possible. But when do you feel Misfits comp really comes online? What will they be looking to do?
Well, I think you have to be very careful in the mid game because Vitality, as we talked about, the double Trinity Force power spike, very potent. Of course, Dan will be relevant on things like the Black Cleaver, and once he's got Death Dance as well, that will also offer a lot of sustain. And Aatrox is a great follow-up to things like the Sejuani ultimate that acts as a really good engage. The thing that I'm worried about for Vitality is they're a pretty squishy comp. They've got Cabochard, of course, who's on the set, who'll be soaking up a lot of the damage, but you've got Elise, Cassio, Ezreal, and Pyke. And while all these champions can be obnoxious, because you have the Cassio ultimate, you have the Ezreal E, you have the Pyke E as well, like, they have a lot of mobility skills in their kit. If something like a Sejuani ultimate lands on you, or LeBlanc chains, or the Thresh Hook, if any of these things land on you, you're dead. You just don't have the HP to survive it. The chain CC is too strong, and it's very easy for Misfits to be able to find these picks. But of course, you got to land those skill shots onto these pretty mobile targets. So I think it's a pretty interesting matchup because you've got kind of like a bit of poke on the side of Vitality. You do have scaling in the sense that I think Pyke does scale very well into the late game just because of how much value his ultimate offers, assuming you can land it. Cassio is obviously a late game menace, really good at just melting through front lines because anything that tries to dive on top of you, you can just use your ultimate, disengage. You likely will be going for a Leandries as well that also just melts through high HP bars. And we can see that Razork obviously on the Sejuani, going to help a lot against that. But the scaling aspect for Misfits is also pretty strong because you have like Aatrox, so I think in late game team fights offers a lot of value because of the amount of crowd control he just inherently brings and the amount of damage that he can offer. If he also gets a reset on his ultimate, he's in a great spot. You've also got a Felios and LeBlanc, who they're both really strong in the late game. Yep. It's a weird one because I'm wondering how these fights are actually going to play out when it comes to execution. Like, because it ultimately comes down to how good is Misfits at landing their stuff onto Vitality.
Well, so far, they've been pretty darn good, and as we go into the Netherverse, we'll jump back into the game. It's something weird happening with portals right there, but we'll jump back onto Summoner's Rift. We'll travel through the parallel dimensions, and Vitality still have, just to catch everyone up, about a 300 to 200 gold lead. You've got tiers finished on Seiken and Comp, and the Trinity Force on its way for Comp as well, as he's already got that Sheen. And now the Rift Herald has been started up by Misfits. Still back. Hasn't really been in bot lane much. Still only level 5. Lantern will come out. Skeens spotted by it. There's the hook only onto Danik, but here comes Cabochard from the top side of the map. And maybe Vitality want to fight this, but there's all 5 members of Misfits around, so they decide they don't want any of that action right now. Misfits get the Rift Herald and get out scot-free.
Good play overall by Misfits. They recognized that Comp didn't have his teleport and he was stuck bot lane. B-Void already made that rotation down. Will give Comp a slight CS advantage, but he's not able to take any plates. So Misfits rearrange their lane assignments, bring B-Void and Denik into the mid lane. They're going to send Featherman down bot. He, of course, does have the TP. And then they can, once they've called all these waves, they can then look to reset and spend some of their gold. So the question is, where will they look to use this Rift Herald? I imagine that right now they don't want to try and play into the set lane. Cabochard feeling very strong. He has reached that level 8 mark. He's completed the Phage. He's a very powerful duelist, and it's a lane that Vitality have often invested in. So instead, it's best to use the Rift Herald on the opposite side of the map, knowing that you can likely gain a bigger advantage over on the other side.
Now, Featherman was the player on the other side of the map. Seiken trying to match him as he came forward, but it's a little bit wary because there's no vision for Vitality down in this bottom river. It would make it very easy for Razork to come across and look for a dive on the Cassio. Meanwhile, right now he's in that middle lane, and Vitality, understanding that Razork could be around here, are bringing over Skeens and Steelback. Steelback will spot that ward out, and you expect this really to be much ado about nothing, as both teams will understand that the enemy is in the vicinity.
I like what Vitality is doing and what Seiken is doing. Seiken recognizes that the bot side of the map doesn't belong to him. If you look at the vision, you can see that a lot of it is being denied. And so Steelback and Skeens were hanging around in the event that Misfits tried to dive. They were in a position to countergank, and Seiken was playing like he didn't have support. So a lot of mind games were going on in that situation, and nothing ends up happening, as you rightly said, but it's nice to see that both teams were prepared. And now Cabochard, he's going to start rotating down. He has the TP, here's the dive.
Razork misses the ult, the Petrifying Gaze comes out, and Vitality, with open arms, take their 3rd kill of the game. Danik getting chased as well, but it looks like Vitality will be happy with just 1.
So, of course, Skeens and Steelback still hung around the bot side of the map, and they were able to make the counter gang happen. Things are looking a little bit scary for Seiken, but of course he gets a beautiful Cassio ult off, which completely turns the gank in their favor. Vitality now extending their gold lead a little bit more. This also frees up Cabochard to push in that wave, get a good reset. Let's have a look back at this. Seiken very low on mana, which is the window with which Misfits use to try and engage. Razork unfortunately misses the ultimate. Seiken then gets a beautiful petrifying gaze onto Razork, which locks him underneath the tower. I think he did still have his flash, but he recognized there was no point in using it because the tower was already locked onto him. So he gives up his life. Vitality find themselves another kill.
You take those. The 13-minute mark, Vitality still have about a 500 gold lead. Dan's going to get his first plate of the game, but he's sitting about 25 CS behind Cabochard, who is going up towards that Trinity Force. Now has the Stinger in his inventory. Actually ahead in gold, Dan because of those 3 kills.
Yep.
We'll see. Razork spotted on a ward. Hasn't had the impact in the early game that he had yesterday against G2, but of course, Sejuani is a very different jungler to Echo.
Yes, very different indeed. He's going to have a much larger impact when we start fighting for Drakes, which is what I would imagine we're going to see very, very soon, because of course Trinity Force hasn't been completed yet.
Oh.
Ooh. Was this one of those?
I feel it was. I think he wanted to sweep. And,
he wanted to sweep, yeah.
Shame.
Yeah.
Shame, Razork.
Yeah.
The rest of Misfits will come up here to try and make a good thing out of a bad situation.
They're going to make the most of it.
They will get some plates. But perhaps not exactly what he wanted. I wonder if the timer was going down. Maybe it was.
I can have a quick look.
Yeah, you can have a quick look back. Steel backhand, Skeens are looking across this wall. They land onto Denik. There's a Cocoon as well. They're going for the chase. Denik locked up in place. He goes golden. And with Razork and B-Boy and Dan awaiting in the wings, Vitality decide they don't want to go any further. Comp trading on Febby, or Febby trading on Comp. And not too much happening in that mid lane.
So the cooldown was pretty short, but I still think it was a mistake. Yep. Not that they didn't take advantage of it. They still got a good number of plates in the top lane. Now that the plates have fallen, it will be very easy for them to take that tower. So, as you said, best out of a bad situation. I think it worked out overall. The next Rift Herald should be spawning relatively soon. But I think the focus for Misfits is actually to secure themselves this Drake. They know that Vitality once again invest everything into the top side. If we quickly toggle over to the Vitality vision, you can just see that they pretty much control the top side river, and they are aware that the Drake is going on, but they're just going to accept the fact that, okay, we'll trade for that one for now, and then we'll look to fight once we complete our Trinity Forces and when we're feeling a little bit stronger. And of course, Vitality are going to trade it for a tower as well, so not the end of the world for Vitality.
That Cloud Drake could be super tasty for Vitality, though. Getting a Cloud Soul, especially on something like a Pike, is incredibly impactful. The ability just to chase people down after you pop that first ultimate, after you get someone.
You think?
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah,
and then you get the movement speed for your E.
Yeah, but I look at Cloud Drake at how much value it offers like the whole team. So let's assume Vitality can get 40% ult CDR. Yeah, the people that value the most out of it are Seiken, but I don't think Comp gets a huge amount of value from it because he reduces the cooldown of his ult every time he lands a Q.
Yeah, but it still reduces.
I mean,
it's still going down, Betty.
But I think that Misfits would actually gain way more benefit from it overall.
I mean, that's sure. I see, here's the thing, Betty. I said Vitality would love to get it, and you said I think Misfits would love more to get it, and that's true.
I'm just talking about like who benefits more from the Cloud Drake, and I think that Misfits would overall benefit more just because it applies to more. Like Elise isn't going to care.
More movement speed is always beneficial. Hook lands into the Cocoon, but B-Boy was able to get away. The bottom side Spiderling still connecting. Now Steelback has the Phantom Undertow, and will use that to escape the clutches of Razork. Seiken trading here. And so, well, Seiken really didn't do much trading. Febiven just gave him a bunch of damage and said, hey, if you could hold this for me, that would be great.
So what Febiven is, as we see, a bit of a trade. TP being used mid, but I don't think they're going to look to collapse on the back of that. Dan looking to play very aggressively because he knows he has support. Good trade there from Cabo.
Steelback's on his way. It doesn't really have as much lethality as he'd like so far, only sitting on the serrated dirt.
Oh wow, and Razork is going to secure the second Rift Herald for Misfits. Even though Vitality have been the aggressors in this early game, it's Misfits that have put a lot more focus on the objectives, and I think that this is way more valuable because it sets them up for the mid to late game where I think they're in a stronger position. But again, I think these fights are going to be really interesting to watch because a lot of it is going to come down to how well can the skill shots land. If Misfits don't reliably land those engages, then Vitality can use the range of Ezreal and the poke from Cassio to just slowly chip away at this Misfits squad. And the thing you got to remember about LeBlanc in the late game is what you've noticed in the laning phase is every time Seiken uses Q to hit a minion, that is when Febiven goes aggressive. Because he recognizes, okay, he doesn't have his trading tool now, I can go in, and then I'm going to back off. And the moment he uses Q again, I'm going to trade again. When you when you're posturing around Drake, when you're posturing around Baron, that's not what Seiken's doing. Seiken has his eyes set on, the moment I see LeBlanc, she's my target. Because if she W's in, Miasma comes down, she can't W back out again. She's then locked up, she's trapped, she's in a very difficult situation. So I think that it can be very difficult for this LeBlanc to play in these later game fights, but that's why I'm really excited to see how they actually play out.
Especially with it being so even so far in this game.
Yeah, you would assume on paper, based on how Misfits has been playing so far over the last few weeks, that they should be the stronger team. Like Vitality 07, Misfits should be the better team fighters. But with the introduction of Steelback, we'll get to see how much the team fighting of Vitality changes.
Well, all of Vitality on their way down towards the bottom lane right now. Forbidden is going to give them the time of day and retreat behind his turret. And I do think we have seen a little bit of a shift in Vitality already in this game. Steelback has been roaming around a huge amount, has been trying to make plays for his team. Of course, the Pike does help you do that. Febby jumped in, the Petrifying Gaze from Seiken was a little bit too late and didn't connect, but Vitality get their second turret of the game and keep that gold pretty darn even.
I like what Dan's doing in the top lane, though. Recognizes where Vitality are on the map, pushing this wave in. He's actually closed the CS gap pretty dramatically, and he's sitting with a 400 gold advantage over Cabochard. Considering the amount of resources he's had, Dan is doing an excellent job, and Misfits also going to use the Rift Tile to secure the mid-tier 1. So Misfits playing the map very well right now. They're punishing the positioning of Vitality, and Vitality are only getting small gains, whereas Misfits are getting a lot more.
That is what you expect from a team that's on a 5-0 winning spree. Misfits only, well, their last loss was in week 1. And so far are challenging at the top of the table. I think there is some debate as to whether they will continue to be there throughout the course of the split, but right now you've got to give them their fair dues, give them the respect they have earned as they take their third tower of the game. 1,300 gold lead for Misfits as we approach that 20-minute mark. There's 22 seconds on the Cloud Drake, and I know Vitality, they'll want that.
Well, it's double Trinity now, Minik.
We've hit the point.
Yeah, we've hit the point. This is when Vitality should look to fight. Those power spikes, very important. You can see the Seraphs also completed Forsaken, so this is what we've literally been building up for the entire game. 20 minutes, we're mid-game, Drake spawning in about, well now, it's alive. This is the fight that I've been seeing, like, how will it play out? How will it execute? What will both these teams do? Vitality start this one off.
If there's no fight now, Vedius, I'm going to be very annoyed. Bone Skewer coming out, only lands on Denick. And Vitality starts to retreat. Glacial Prison does come out, but lands on one. B-Boy with the Moonlight Vigil coming out as well. Comp almost falls, but just about survives. Now the teleport came into the fight, but wasn't able to find this flanking ward that perhaps would have cost Vitality some of their lives. There are a lot of pings coming off onto Baron right now. Misfits maybe just looking for vision around it and to get this mid wave pushing out.
Now, admittedly, that fight a little anticlimactic.
I know
you were expecting, but you can see how difficult it can be to engage on this Vitality comp.
Yeah.
They have a lot of disengaged tools. Their comp very obnoxious because of how mobile it is as well. And that's why I talked about Misfits. Their comp as a whole, very strong, but it's very reliant on landing those engaged tools, landing that pick, landing that crowd control, and if they can't do it, then it's difficult for them to start a fight, and Vitality can just take advantage of their range. Razork now could be in some danger.
Lands. Oh, that was beautiful! You could see it coming, but still meant that Razork had to burn the flash. The base break is going to come in as Skeens is on the chase. Goes up, comes down, and Razork showstopper to the back. Good kill there by Cabochard, all set up by Steelback.
Greedy play from Razork, going for that Gromp when he doesn't have control over that area of the map. So Vitality, they're going on the offensive. They're starting off the Baron.
Steelback lands the hook, flashes away. The chains can't quite connect. Bebby has to jump back. And yeah, it felt greedy. It felt like perhaps a step too far there for Vitality to get the Baron.
Well, I like the fact that they threatened it because it forced Misfits to respond. Now Vitality can just look to reset. Feathervin, ooh, he doesn't have vision, so he doesn't go for that kill, but you can see how much poke and damage Feathervin is outputting on his LeBlanc. Damn, getting very tense. Razork, uncharacteristic play, especially seeing as what we saw from him yesterday. But yeah, showcasing a little bit of inconsistency. But this is what I talk about when you look at the state of the minimap, you can see Dan is back in base, B-Boy is just returning to the mid lane, LeBlanc is bot lane. You can't do Gromp here. You just can't. He should have just left much earlier. Denick tried to stick around and offer him the lantern, and Denick thinks that he's safe because of that, but then a really good Q from Steelback gets the interrupt, and then they find that quick kill. Doesn't convert into a Baron, but again, I want to bring us back to the items. Liandry's for Seiken. Great item in this matchup. A lot of health being stacked for Razork with the Black Cleaver as well. Dan sitting on a healthy amount of health. Healthy amount of health.
It's very healthy amount of health.
Yeah, but Seiken, basically, I think this Leandry's item is so good on Cassio, and especially in this matchup, you're just going to melt through those tanks. So big fan of it here.
Build up those Madness stacks, get the extra damage off. We did see Infinity Edge complete on B-Voy on the other side, though. He's got 2 items on Aphelios. We'll be looking towards perhaps a Runeans as the third. And the Black Cleaver and Death's Dance on Dan. So it's not that Misfits are weak, it's just that Vitality's comp right now is in its most powerful position, but not if Skeens is dead. Went for the ward, Steelback having to try and get away from Febby here, but with the Mystic Shots landing and the chains coming out, Steelback's done. Misfits find 2 quick picks in the river.
And we talked about how Misfits comp is good at finding these picks. If you land a hook onto these squishy targets, you die. And we saw it happen back to back. Skeens get hooks, instantly one-shot. Steelback gets caught, instantly one-shot. Now with 2 members of Vitality dead, Misfits start off the Baron.
The True-Shot Barrage actually missed the Baron. Febby going in, comp able to jump away. Are they going to fight it? They're going for it. They're going for it. Seiken off towards the top side. Moonlight Vigil doesn't quite connect, but where's Dan? There he comes from the side. Out of the darkness comes the World Ender. Comp is already done. Cabochard's caught in the pit, and he goes golden, but the only medal you're getting is 2nd place here, Cabochard. Taken out in the Baron pit. Seiken looking for the steal, but Danik lands the hook across the wall, and the chase is on. There's the Baron. There's the 3rd kill of the fight as the Petrifying Gaze won't quite connect. Seiken, well, he's going to fall in the end, you have to feel. He flashes away. Febby. Oh, Skeens came in from the bottom side. Febby gets the kill. Skeens goes down. Vitality are just walking into their doom.
And Misfits absolutely massacre Vitality. Pick after pick, kill after kill. Misfits secure themselves the Baron and now have firm control over the game. This is where things start off. Skeens sees a control ward, single hook into 1 shot from B-Voy on the Aphelios. Fervent sees Steelback and he's like, oh, hey, Pike. Now you're dead. And easy transition then immediately into the Baron. Comp thinks that he can use his poke, but look, great utilization of the ultimate from B-Voy to set up for the Gravitum, roots him in place just as Feberbin arrives. Beautiful combo between the AD carry and mid laner, and then Cabochard all isolated in the Baron pit. You might be the boss, but no one is strong enough to stop 5 men of Misfits. And another beautiful hook from Danik. This support player really has showcased what he's capable of over the last 2 days. Yesterday on the Rakan, today on the Thresh. Yes, the early game was a little bit slow for Misfits, but it's kind of what we expect with their comp, and now we can see in this mid-game, Danik doing a great job.
Didn't see that Febby died at the end. Good shutdown there from Seiken, at least taking 1 Baron buff off. Of course, LeBlanc can be put in a side lane in a 1v1. That's actually what Misfits are doing right now. But Misfits, very much in control. 5,000 gold lead now after it was only about 300 or 400 a little while ago. They've still got the Baron buff, and they have the ability to split up the map.
Yeah, of course, the teleport is still available on Feberbin. They're only 1 drink away from securing that soul, but I don't know if they need it. Of course, the death from Feberbin means he doesn't have the Baron, so he doesn't generate that same level of pressure. But Misfits are going to rotate towards him, knowing that he's stacking up a wave. Looks like we're seeing a fight.
Danda doesn't have TP, but already Steelback caught out, found him under tow, trying to get away, but Skeens just popped up and went straight back down into the midst of Misfits. And now it's a 4v4. Dandan's in the middle lane. You can see the damage coming out from B-Boy with that Infernum, with the Flamethrower, spitting fire at his enemies and clearing out the wave pretty darn quick.
Misfits just buying their time now. It was unfortunate that the Elise used the repel to sidestep, but then only leave the man behind him to the whims of Misfits to look to shut down. Of course, Skeens still ends up losing his life regardless. We touched on the fact that Death Cap has been completed for Feberbin. Really big item on LeBlanc, especially in the late game. We can see that Razork's ultimate not up for a while, so it looks like Misfits are just going to take this tower and likely back off. I think that they're overstaying just a bit if they greed for a little bit more.
Razork was hooked across the wall there, but just no follow-up. Cocoon lands as well, but it's only on a B-Voy who just walks away. Danik acting as a bit of a body block. And yeah, Misfits will back away. 3,500 gold or thereabouts from the Baron buff. Oh, Febby. It's got distortion. He's probably got his ult. Yeah, can just double distort if he needs to. So 3 minutes on the Cloud Soul. And 3 minutes on the next Baron. Dan, you gonna take this? You gonna take this?
I mean, he's level 15. I reckon he can 2v1 that.
That is a weakness of Steelback roaming around so much. He's actually 2 levels behind on this Pike. I've yet to see him use ultimate as well. Now, there haven't been many opportunities, because I noticed it a little while ago, but he hasn't got any gold from the cut, and I'm pretty sure he's not used that button.
Yeah, I don't think he has actually yet. I think you're right. We'll see if he can do it, because they still have an opportunity. Baron spawns in 2.5 minutes. Vitality is strong, but not as strong as Misfits, which means that they're going to have to find a pretty big pick if they want to stand a chance of turning this game around. Misfits is at a point now where it's a lot easier for them to start these fights off. They're so much stronger in these fights. Fervent actually sitting in the top lane. Here we go. Fight about to start.
From Denik's Cabochard is there on the front line. They're looking for fight. The showstopper to knock him back. Okay, there we go. 1 kill for Vitality. Comp wasn't even there with them. And that is the start of something, perhaps, for the predominantly French Vitality squadron.
Well, Steelback did use his ult this time around. Does help secure the kill, which means that he will be getting a bit more gold into his back pocket, and this will alleviate some of the pressure. No objective to be able to convert it into, and honestly a bit of a misplay there from Misfits. They committed 3 members to the bot side. They didn't have their AD carry with them. Featherman was pushing out top, and it was overall a big overstep for Misfits. Likely not going to cost them too much. Still sitting with a 6k gold advantage. It's just going to hurt their KDA overall.
And that's what we play for, Velius.
Is it?
Keep that KDA up, nice and high. Have another look at that play in the bottom lane. Misfits were the ones who are on the aggressive.
Yeah, so you can see again, draw your attention to the minimap. You'll notice that B-Boy isn't there. Featherman pushing out top. And Featherman's just looking at this being like, guys, I'm not TPing into this. Why are we starting this fight? Because it's a pointless fight, you know? It's not over anything. You're not looking to contest an objective. You're just risking, well, you're risking nothing. And, you know, you end up getting punished for it. So, good stuff there for Vitality.
I do want to bring attention to a couple of item completions. Cabochard has finished the Gargoyle Stone Plate, so if he's in the midst of a fight, be pretty darn tanky. Alongside that, we've got a Bilgewater Cutlass sitting on comp, and I'm wondering if that's going to be a Hextech Revolver, because I have been hearing a few rumors of some more AP Ezreal builds. Could, of course, just be the Blade of the Ruin King that we have sometimes seen.
Well, we'll have to wait and see. Could, of course, go either way. I think it's more likely to be Blade of the Ruin King.
I guess with the amount of AP they have on their team, having more physical damage definitely helps.
But I also think that it just helps with trying to kite the LeBlanc, being able to get that bonus movement speed. I think is pretty valuable on the active. We can see right now Misfits just splitting up the map. They're playing through 2 lanes for the time being. Saking going to push out top. Of course, this will give access to the Baron for Vitality, and they do this very quickly because, of course, they do have the Cassio on their side. But it looks like they're just going to use it to find a pick.
Razork stunned up before he can get the hook off. Flashes away. Moonlight Vigil won't connect. And
to use his flash.
Steelback, yeah, it was flash. Well, it did flash away from the fight. Comp's going to jump here, but Misfits should be able to take this side pretty darn quickly with the way pushing in. Vitality stay around Baron, though.
Vitality tried to make a pick happen. They face-checked Razork, and of course, they end up getting punished for it. Now we can see the Cloud Drake is, of course, alive, but I think the Baron is the focus. I like what we're seeing from Misfits. They're sending the AD carry to solo it. Very common strategy, because many AD carries at this point in the game can definitely do it. Level 16, of course, already completed.
He's at 3.5 items, and now the Cloud Soul sits on Misfits' shoulders.
That hurt. That was quite a crit coming off of B-Voy. Of course, still utilizing the long range of the Calibrum. Sniper rifle, the green one. That was
the green one, is that not the white one? Oh, the Crescendum is the white one.
Yeah, whoa, don't you get confused now, okay?
I use the names. I don't need to color coordinate everything.
There's green, blue, white, red, purple. And those are the 5 colors, and they all do different things. There are only 5 colors, medic.
Why is yellow? Why is there not a yellow gun?
No, we don't talk about yellow.
Oh, okay.
Now you can see, if you look at the minimap, again, good flanking wards available for Vitality, triple teleport available. But these waves are being pushed in mid and top. Cabochard going to reset, spend some of his gold. Let's see what he picks up. I think he wants to try and complete that Sterix. I'm not sure if he has enough gold for it just yet. He's waiting, he's waiting, he's waiting.
He does not.
He doesn't.
680 gold sitting on the shoulders.
Meanwhile, the Baron.
Whoa. Well, we talked about the damage B-Boy can do. This is gone. Vitality don't even, well, maybe they recognized it was happening, but it's gone before they can react. 8,000 gold lead now for Misfits at 31 minutes and their second Baron buff of the game.
So, Crescendum, really good at taking Baron, if you hadn't noticed. Misfits just 2-man that one. Take it without a response, as you mentioned, Medic, and now they can just start sieging onto the base of Vitality. Now, it is difficult to siege against the Cassio. Her miasma, really obnoxious, and if you get too close to the tower, that Petrifying Gaze comes out, and then you get stunned, and then you might die. So, Misfits want to show that respect, but they also want to break into the base.
Yeah, you
so,
kind of have to, at some point you have to not respect.
Yes.
You have to go for the fight.
So I wonder if Misfits will consider going for a dive. Of course, it's always a risk, but well, they're going to reset for now.
Yeah.
Taking it slow and steady. I think they can, if they look to play through 3 lanes because they have both teleports up, I think that's fine. I don't think Vitality is likely going to engage on you.
Oh, it's a smart little play.
Yeah, we get to see the Blast Cone come over. You can see that he's using the green plus the white. So he's, the white gives you all the shurikens, and once you stack those up, which you can stack up pretty quickly, because what he did, oh, actually, it was pretty cool what he did. So he basically spends all of his ammo on getting the
Sentry
turret up, yeah, the sentry up, which then helps him generate a lot more turret stacks, and then he gets Severum as well, which when you Q, it gives you a lot of additional damage. Yeah, so like he combined like 3 guns there into helping take down the Baron.
Just Aphelios things.
Just Aphelios things. A weapon for every kit. He reminds me of Inspector Gadget, you know? Oh, struggling to get into the door? Here, have a gun for that, you know? Building a table? I've got a gun for that too.
Is it called a nail gun?
Could be.
Building tables. Vitality here trying to defend, but push in 2 lanes from Misfits so far. Dandan's in the top lane, decoy quite low, but look at this damage on comp. Dodges away from the Moonlight Vigil. Dandan's coming in to Cabershot off towards the top side. 2-level advantage for Dandan.
B-Boy's full health again.
Welcome to Severum. Now, comp, he is not full health again. Did go for the Blade of the Ruin King, but these turrets under fire from Misfits as they try to break the base for their 6th consecutive game. Teleport. It's a flank.
Oh, it's
Talked
a flank.
about it. Seika flashes forward, but everyone looks the other way. Doesn't stare into the eyes of the snake today at Cabochard. It's not really a flank if you're left all alone. Skeens is just dead. Dandan's fighting off the rest of Vitality. Cabochard, well, you're doing some good damage, my man, but you can't take them down in a 3v1. A double kill coming for Febby as Dandan he walks straight through Steelback. The Pike does nothing in this situation. Pulled back, goodbye. That is one of the cleanest aces I've ever seen. Misfits really don't even lose too much health, and they will take down the Nexus turret, and with it, the Nexus in their 6th consecutive game. Misfits stand atop the LEC at 6-2.
Well played from Misfits. Little to criticize.